Okay. So these are the 6 steps again. And so not Scott McCloud who did this wonderful book, but which is all comic, by the way. It's all in the form of comics. Turns that into 6 sort of equivalent things in software development, which, as we've noticed, looks a little bit like the waterfall model. Needs, specs, information architecture, interaction design, visual design, coding, testing, and QA. So all those things that you spent years, and those of you who are like computer science juniors or something, you spent years and years doing, they all just fit into 6. And that's part of the point, is I want to show you sort of, once again, this is all software engineering, but from a very different perspective. And I don't know, have any of you ever had the experience of like your cousins from Florida come to visit and they say, show me around the town, and you get a completely different experience of your own town? You go to things, I never went to that famous thing that everyone goes to when they come to our town. It's like the New Yorker who's never been to the Statue of Liberty or something. When I moved to California, I called up my cousin who was born here, lived his entire life here, and said, so what should I do when we go to Death Valley? He said, I've never been to Death Valley. You live in California, you've never been to Death Valley? Well, it's always there, right? So if you haven't been to Death Valley, it's absolutely worth going, but maybe wait a few months. It's hot. Okay. So the first early stages are market and user research, and then the user experience team, and then the part that most of us identify with, but not all of us, development and QA teams. So different people are involved, multi-person process. And so here's back to the Scott McCloud book, just pointing out that you can sort of go from an inner core to an outer core. And in the book, he spends a lot more time on this that isn't in this lecture, but I just went back and read it last night. It's very interesting. But people see the surface, but the surface, just having the surface by itself is not enough. If we bite into that shiny new apple and it's empty, then yuck. So you can't start from the surface. You can't say, oh, there's something cool on the web that we need to have on our website, so you just photocopy it and paste it onto your website. That's not how it works, right? You need to start from underlying what's the needs and do some magic. You need to start from needs and go through this whole process. You can't just get to the end here. Now you can, if it's a small enough thing that either you hold it completely in your mind and one person is dealing with it, one person is conceiving it, or maybe no one else is going to use it besides you, then you don't need to go through this process. But we're talking about large-scale professional level things. So, as always, we start with the high-level requirements. Oh, provide voting information to U.S. seniors. Or make this a fun game. But we don't make any decisions about form or design. How did I phrase that earlier in the quarter? That's right. Focus on what, not how. Yeah, get that straight. On what, not how. What we want to do is provide voting info to U.S. seniors or teach students how to trade stocks. Let's get that clear in our mind and then figure out how to do it. How do you address those needs? So now with the how. So, tutorials, office tool, stock market contest. We're not really designing it. I mean, the what to how is not just a binary thing. It's a process. And you can have higher levels and lower levels. So we're getting a little bit of how. And then you start talking about, you start really laying it out and coming up with boxes and how they relate to each other. And this is one approach that some people do, is they take all these little pieces of all these little ideas and things that don't necessarily fit together, and they write them on sticky notes and put them up on a wall, and then move the sticky notes around, and sometimes it works nicely, and some sort of, you realize you've got a few different categories of things. So information architecture, it doesn't talk too much about that. Interaction design, so, how are people going to interact with are people going to be at this place and then go to there, or what are they going to want to do, or if you're at A and you want to go to C, do you have to go through B, or can you go directly to C? And you can do that at a high level and then a much more detailed level. You can sketch out what the user interface will be like. Wireframe means you're just trying to, just the outline. You're not trying to get everything just right. But it's just a sort of a high-level view, and you don't fill in, as you can see here, they're not filling, it's just sort of lines just to indicate something comes there. You can do paper prototyping. Paper prototyping is something we did in the previous and wireframes. We did last year in this class. I didn't do it this year because it's kind of hard just to organize it with a big class. Anyway, so I'm not trying to, I mean, there's a lot here, but I just want to give you the sense that a sort of a different perspective on software engineering than what I've been doing. So now we can do the visual design. How it looks is how it works. So for instance, if you lay out something like this with a big picture and then some things here, we don't even have to really be able to look at the individual words, right? We can just sort of say, okay, at the top is something that looks like a header, a navigation bar, and then there's an image. And what's the feel it gives you to have a big image taking up more than 50% of the screen? Why would someone do that? The thinking is, it humanizes, it gives people something to relate to, it looks less techy. Some people are dealing with the computer, and some of us are known to love computers, but a lot of people aren't. And they see, oh, it's a dog. Oh, I just love this site so much. It's a big picture of a dog. Then there's items, and it looks, sort of just from our expectations, it looks like there are certain things in certain places. Because we've all been to enough websites now that we sort of have certain expectations, and probably you're best off if you flow with that. Site layout should conform to our expectations based on our experiences. Of course, sometimes you want to say, no, I'm going to explode all that. I'm going to do something completely different. This is an interesting one. Make functionality more obvious. So I'm not, the inactive should look inactive. The active should look active. Or here's a cancel and submit. Maybe this is a better cancel and submit. Why would these two choices be better than these two? Yeah. Some people are going to relate to icons like a big X or a check mark faster and better than they're going to relate to words. And I would claim that the word submit is a really lousy word to use in this case anyway, right? Submit? Who are you submitting to? Or cancel and then submit, which means we're going to go on to someplace. That means we're moving forward. We're progressing. The arrow is if you ask a 3-year-old what an arrow means, a 3-year-old will know. That's a really basic symbol in the West, at least. If you're interested in these things, Don Norman's a good guy to read. And he's written The Design of Everyday Things. Really good. So if this is the side of software and computers and stuff that you're interested in, which is great, it's a really big field, it's really interesting, read Don Norman. Which do you feel would work better? How many people say the one on the left? How many people say the one on the right? So, people have different opinions. I don't know. How it looks is how well it works. That's a little extreme, I think. But effective design. So how does it affect you? Does it give you pleasure to use it? There's no question about it. There's some pleasure to holding a little box like this. It's just the right size. It makes you feel like you've got something, right? I mean, if you don't feel that, okay. But lots of people do feel that. And it's like they don't want to put down this magical device.